Welcome to the second episode of Out of the Groove Power Hour presented by Circle B Diecast. Be sure to use code OOTG, stands for Out of the Groove, for free shipping on orders over $30 at circlebdiecast.com. Brennan, you're laughing at me because I almost forgot what the promo code was. It's my own show and I forgot what it was for a moment. But how's it going? Brennan Poole is with us. Yeah, studio audience.
Woo! Yeah, put in the clap, clap track.
I'm gonna put that
and
every
the
week.
laughing track. Heck yeah.
Boo.
Yeah. Boo. I'm good. I'm a little sore still because I just, had like the hardest hit I've ever had in my life in that crazy wild Atlanta race, but it was a good finish. I mean, a good finish.
Top 15.
Yeah, P13 on the day, 3 wide at the finish line, battling for that spot, which was pretty fun. But it was a chaotic race. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. A lot of funny stuff happened in Atlanta that I know we're going to talk about. That I'm sure you, the Groovy Gang, everyone watching this podcast wants to hear us chat about. But yeah, I mean, it's been good. I'm doing good, man. I hope you're doing good. I'm going to Texas this weekend.
The best state.
We're recording this right before I go to Coda. So I'm excited about that. I'm gonna get some Tex-Mex. It's like 3 hours from where I grew up. So I'm like super, super, super excited. And I love road course racing. So it's
awesome.
All's good in the hood over here.
Yeah, that sounds great. I can't wait for Circuit of the Americas, Austin, Texas, my old stomping grounds. That's where I went to college. I was in Austin for 3 years at the University of Texas. I should have worn my some UT gear, but yeah, I didn't want to anger basically everybody else who hates UT. But talk about Atlanta for a minute. It was a crazy race. My perspective watching it from my couch at home was it was unwatchable for about 80 laps. I'm talking about the Xfinity race, I should say. I should be specific. We're talking about Xfinity. It was unwatchable for 80 laps. Caution, caution, caution. You did a great job avoiding the wrecks, Brennan. Ended on a pretty long green flag run, very competitive, but then wrecking across the line. Yeah, just take me through your day because you got a 13th place finish. I know you tore up a car. Couldn't really do much about it at the end. Just big wreck in front of you. What are you going to do? You got to get every point you can. But like, how big was that finish for your team this early in the season?
Well, it was real big for us just to talk about the finish a little bit because we really needed the points. Blowing up at Daytona, where we were running inside the top 15 with 28 laps to go, like we were going to have a good finish. I think even if we would have wrecked out at the end, we still would have ended up in a decent spot in Daytona. So getting knocked out that early kind of hurt us points wise. So we've been kind of scrapping to get back there. We had a decent run at Fontana, kind of messed the strategy up a little bit. Didn't have a set of tires at the very end on that last caution and finished 25th when we should have ran inside the top 20 there. We actually had a really good car, all of Fontana race. And then Vegas was a struggle for us. And then Phoenix, we got ran over on that last restart with like 7 laps to go, and I lost like 8 or 9 spots. Even you saw, Eric. You're like, I saw that.
I saw the leaderboard. I was like, there's the 6th. When I was like, well, what happened?
I almost rear clipped it. I got ran so hard into turn 3, but it's okay. It's part of racing. So we finished 29th, but we should have been about 22nd, 23rd. So this 13th place finish was huge for us points wise because going to, which not a lot of people know, but for us in the Xfinity schedule, Circuit of the Americas is the second highest paying race behind Daytona. So it's really big for all of the midfield teams, because the purse money is big. So this knocked us up to 24th in drivers, but 28th in the owners. So it basically locks us in the race no matter what, even if we have a problem in qualifying or something like that, locks us in the race. So that was really, really important for us to get those points. So that 13th place finish was huge because it climbed us up from 31st to 28th in the owners, which, it was a pretty big gap. So I'm happy about that. Our team's happy about that. But yeah, it was wild. I missed a lot of wrecks. Like right off the bat, there were wrecks happening like lap 1. I was like, what is going on? Like I was already, because qualifying was rained out. So I started 29th or 28th or something, 29th, I think. And so I was already in the back. And my spotter, I remember like lap 1 was like, oh, they're wrecking behind you. Caution's out. I'm like, wrecking behind me? I'm like, there's not even that many cars back there. Like, what's going on? So like I didn't even see exactly what happened on that for those couple ones.
Did it feel as edgy as it looked? Like it just looked like those cars had no stability.
They were. I was incredibly loose, like incredibly loose. Like I was just like hanging on, especially in the back of the pack like that in the dirty air. They're even crazier to drive. But I can't imagine. Like for the life of me, I still don't understand why guys are going like 3 wide in stage one when there's like no grip. They're already like sideways, and like some guys are kind of like hitting the wall. And like, I'm like, you got like, you must also all be free in some form, because I mean I was really free, so I'm assuming just like where everyone else started off, they were also probably more on the free side. And from my conversations with other guys, that seems to be the case. Why are we going 3 wide for multiple rows when everyone's barely hanging on as it is? Like 4 laps into the race, and that makes no sense to me. And that, but guys do that; it just doesn't. So yeah, so there were a lot of wrecks caused, I think, from guys just over driving because the
Yeah.
cars were just like not handling well, and we probably should have just, got to the stage to make adjustments, which is how I worked my race. I got to the first
Smart.
stage, I made adjustments, needed a little bit more, made a couple more adjustments in stage two. There were so many cautions, we just came down and started working on it, and then I was in good shape, and my car drove pretty good. And yeah, I missed the big wreck with the 7. He
Yeah.
wrecked. I missed the other one with the 11 and somebody else, but 11 came like back down the track and almost got me. That was close. So there were a couple of big ones I missed. And then at the end, I mean, what do you do? I mean, it's the last lap. You're racing to the finish line. I had a couple of awesome passes on that last lap coming back to the checker that like jumped me up from like, I don't know, 17th, 18th up to like where I was battling like close for a top 10 spot, because I was side by side with the 00 and of Cole Custer and somebody else. I think it was the 51. And we were all racing for that spot. So like you can't lift, even though I know they're wrecking, I can't lift because I can't afford to give up the spots.
Yeah.
So I just kept my foot in it. And when I got to the line, I slammed on the brakes, as well as I'm sure the guys next to me did too, because you couldn't really see because there was some smoke.
Yeah.
And then I mean, the 48 was right there in that top lane where I was. And I don't, in the moment, it happened so quick. I just made the decision to just try to slow down as much as I could, as hard as I could on the brakes, and just kind of hit him square. I mean, there's not I mean, I could have tried to turn or avoid, but I think that would have caused maybe even more of a worse wreck than what it was. So in the moment, I made that decision with half a second to decide that, and then that was what it was. So yeah.
Well, glad you're okay. Not a little sore, it sounds like, but
Yeah,
all good
that's
otherwise.
part of it. Yeah, that's part of it. I mean,
Where does that rank? You said that was one of the hardest hits you've taken. Is that true? Is
that
that
is yeah, that's probably the hardest hit I've had in an Xfinity car. I've
wow?
had some big wrecks over the years, like at Daytona and some places I hit pretty hard in 2015. So I've had some hard hits, but that one was like real big. I mean, it knocked
Yeah.
the transmission up through the floor and into like the center bar. I don't know what that exact bar is called, but knocked the back. I mean, it broke the bar, my dash. It broke my dash apart, the brake pedal and stuff. My feet. I had my foot on the brake when I hit him because I was trying to slow down as much as I could after crossing the line. I kind of like lifted and hit the brakes as I was crossing the line because I knew it was going to be close with what was happening in front of me, but I couldn't see. And then, yeah, so my foot was on the brake. So when I hit him, it's like, yeah, my foot,
Hmm.
yeah, broke the brake pedal. Like it was an incredibly, incredibly hard hit. It's one of those ones
Gosh.
where you just like wait a minute and you're like, am I okay?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, everything seems to be fine because you're like your adrenaline, everything's
Yeah.
so high, like you don't know that you're hurt until you know that you're hurt. So it
Yeah.
like takes a minute to settle in. But I was okay, and I got out, and I actually drove home after the race from Atlanta to Charlotte. So I was fine, and I stopped and got a Freddy's cheeseburger and their little steak
Hey,
fries, and whew,
I like
it was good.
Freddy's. Where does Freddy's rank among fast food burgers? My girlfriend and I had this debate the other day,
Oh
particularly
my
about
god,
In-N-Out Burger. I like Culver's a
I
lot.
love Culver's too because they got cheese curds, man. How can you give
Oh,
up
they
cheese
do.
curds, dude?
But
I
I
don't
like a
know.
Freddy's
Like
burger.
I like a Freddy's burger too, and I like their fries a lot. It is more pricey. It's on a little bit more on the
Yeah.
pricier side than some fast foods. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like it better than In and Out. I don't like, even being born in California and like always being like, oh, we got to go to now, we got to go to now. Like it's good, but like I don't think it's definitely not better than Freddy's. Like it's not even close. It's
No.
In and Out Burger is like their burger might be a little bit better than Whataburger, but everything else at Whataburger is better to
Yeah,
me. Like
Whataburger's a better
everything.
restaurant.
Well, yeah, so I don't get it. And like their fries and In and Out are basically inedible. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I see. Like Five Guys to me is like maybe the best burger, but that's not really fast food because do they even have a drive-through there? Like I
I
don't.
don't think they have a
You gotta have
drive-through.
it. To me, you
No.
have to have a drive-through to be considered true fast food. That's
Yeah.
just my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my hot take. Well,
Yeah.
not to get too off topic. I know we're talking about Atlanta. The Xfinity race I think stole the show this week in many ways.
Josh
Yeah.
Williams. We get to talk about
What was your view of Josh Williams? Did you see Josh Williams get out and
it.
park his car on the front stretch?
So my spotter and crew chief were like laughing, and they're like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Well," I'm like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "There's debris on the front stretch." That was their joke to me. They're like, "There's debris on the front stretch." I'm like,
Get the
"Debris?
sweepers out.
Why are you like? What? Are you, yeah, why are you laughing?" I thought like a fan. Like I'm going down the backstretch. I thought a fan or somebody threw something on the track that was like inappropriate or something
Hmm.
funny. Like that's what I'm thinking. Why? Because like why are they laughing so hard and telling me there's debris on the track? So I turn the corner. I'm like, oh, this is a whole car. I'm like, what? I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? They're like, yeah, Josh Williams just parked his car on the front stretch and got out. So then I start looking down the pit lane, and when I got there, I could like see him walking down the pit lane, basically, like he had just kind of come out of the grass and was walking down the pit lane. And that's what I saw. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, that's pretty. I mean, I thought it was funny. I know NASCAR probably didn't think it was funny since they kept him in NASCAR prison for 2.5 hours, but I was like, wow, that is funny. Like, and I know the fans also
Fans
enjoyed
loved
it.
it.
It was entertainment. And
It was the most entertaining part of that race.
yeah,
No disrespect to the product, but it was the first half was like we were waiting for something to ease the tension from that first half, and Josh Williams delivered that. So the fans at
for
home, we
sure.
appreciated it, Josh. We won't help pay your fine, but hopefully Denny does that if you do get it. We're filming this before any official ruling has come down, so we don't
That's
know.
correct. Yeah.
We don't know if he'll get a
Well,
penalty.
I just think, at the end of the day, NASCAR it's for entertainment. It's a sport that people watch for entertainment.
Yeah.
And we have to be entertaining, and you need stuff like that to happen to create the drama and the excitement and the entertainment in the sport. So I hope NASCAR is not too hard on him, because like, yes, it's like to them it's annoying, and it's a disrespectful type style move to do that, but like at the same time, like the amount of like the videos, everything, it went viral. Like ESPN reported on it. Like it was huge for the sport. Really, it got a lot more attention
Yeah.
on the sport. So I hope like they NASCAR can appreciate the entertainment value that came out of it. And like, if I had to guess, I'm hoping like at the least it's maybe like a small fine and maybe some points, but hopefully not a suspension or anything like that. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think he deserves that part of it, but um, obviously they have to do something to try to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But man, it was just yeah, it was very, very
I
entertaining.
want to know how the hauler meeting, because yeah, he sat in NASCAR jail for 2.5 hours, and then
Yeah.
and then he had to deal with
Uh,
Wayne Otten, the series director. Brennan, have you ever been in the hauler? Have you been called to the hauler post race?
yeah, I've been in the
Oh,
holler before. I've been yelled at by Wayne.
so what's that like? Can you give
But
us some insight?
yeah, I mean, it's just it's a little awkward. At least it feels my experiences in there have been awkward and felt just like a little bit uncomfortable, because like it's definitely their domain and you're a little bit out of your element, and you don't want to make them any more mad than you already have made them. So
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, there's definitely, you almost in a way feel like a kid getting yelled at by your parent or something like that in a way. Like, like that's just kind of how it feels. But like you just can't, like I remember my crew chief telling me like, listen, they're just like, don't say anything when you're in there. But I remember Wayne asked me
Plead
like,
the
well, what do
fifth.
you yeah, well, just be quiet, let them yell at you, and then they'll get it all out, and then we can leave. And I was like, okay. So I went in there, but then Wayne asked me a question like directly to me that like needed an answer. And he was like, what do you think I should do? So then I told him what I thought he should do, and then he told me that I shouldn't tell him what he should be doing. And it was like large, like he yelled at me big time. And I'm like, okay, whoops. I guess
That's
I
funny.
guess I shouldn't have said anything and should have
It was a trick
just stared
question.
quietly, and it was a trick question, and he got me good. And then yeah, and then we left. And I don't think I was in there for I wasn't locked up for 2.5 hours, but
Mm.
I was in there for about an hour or so. So it's just one of those things that you go through, and I'm sure Josh got yelled at pretty good. Either that, and maybe they had some laughs in there too. Like you're still in trouble, but in this scenario, I'm betting there was some laughs also had amongst the conversation. Granted, a lot of yelling probably going down, but in talking about the situation and explaining NASCAR's sides of things and why you can't do that. But I'm sure there was some joyous moments in there.
Hopefully they
Also.
found some even ground, some peace. Josh,
Yeah.
when Josh Williams came out of the hauler and spoke to reporters, he seemed very mellow. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
He definitely looked like he'd had, I don't know, the wrath of God instilled in him, perhaps by Wayne Otten. It's funny. So I met Wayne Otten actually for the first time last year at Phoenix, the end of the season. I was walking through the garage and someone introduced me to him. Like, have you ever met Wayne Otten? I'm like, I have not. So Wayne was nice enough to give me a tour of the Xfinity Series hauler, showed me all the different cameras they have where they make a lot of live decisions during the race. And I was like, really impressed. But he was such a cheerful, genuine,
Yeah.
nice guy. And in the back of my head, I'm like, this is the series director. I know this is the guy who has to be
Yep.
the enforcer. He's got to turn that on when duty calls. And I don't know, my one interaction with him, it's so hard for me to see him getting angry and scary. But clearly, that's what the job calls for. So that's
He
funny.
is so nice. Like my rookie year, because he does the rookie meeting for all the rookies, and yeah, just so kind and so nice, and just like a great guy. But then also there's a switch
Yeah.
that they can flip it on, and it can be brutal. But yeah, I like Wayne. I think he does a great job, and it's awesome of him to show you that trailer. I've been in there, so so I know what it's like. But yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome. Well, our guest this week is Carson Hocevar. He is a Craftsman Truck Series driver. Really fun, really exciting. Fun fact, Brennan. So when I started on YouTube a long time ago, when I was in high school and I was doing NASCAR stop motion videos with different diecast cars to sort of tie this into our sponsor. I probably ordered some from Circle B Diecast way back in the day. But I would do stop motion videos with these diecast cars and I would ask viewers to kind of like sign up or sponsor a car. So like, the 20 car would have, a list of YouTube users that were supporting the car for this series of videos I would do. And that's how I got my start on YouTube. And I found out a few years ago that Carson Hocevar actually signed up for a car in one of my early YouTube stop motion series. So this guy, like, I'm 25. Brennan, how old are you? You're 30, 31,
31.
31.
Yeah.
Carson's 20 years old. He's up and coming. But it feels weird to know that in a way, he's been on my radar since he was probably 13 years old. I don't know how old he would have been back then. So I think that's
That
pretty
is
cool.
that is really cool. That's awesome,
It's
man.
so
And
random.
I
Yeah.
how random is that? Yeah, that kid
What are the
sponsored a
odds?
car in your show and then has made it to one of the NASCAR top three series.
Yeah, I
Pretty
think that's
cool.
crazy. So,
Pretty
with
neat.
that being said, we'd like to invite Carson onto Power Hour. Let's bring him in now. Carson Hocevar joins Power Hour. Brennan, you and I are now joined by a very special guest, the second guest in the history of Power Hour. Let's hope we don't screw this one up. Carson Hocevar, Nice Motorsports driver in the Craftsman Truck Series. Carson, it's great to have you on. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Thanks, Brennan. Thanks for having me on. We made the joke that I'm used to second, so thanks for having me on second, just to kind of remind me of that.
We really meant nothing by it, but we do appreciate it. Maybe our next show you can be the first guest. Brennan and I will relaunch this. We'll rebrand it. We'll have to make that happen. But first, I want to ask you, Carson, about North Wilkesboro, because I saw yesterday you were one of the few Truck Series drivers making laps on the racetrack. I don't know, were these the first like actual Truck Series laps on North Wilkesboro in like a decade? I don't know, but that's awesome. How was it?
It was really fun. It was cool just to walk into the place. They have at least 200, 300 people working on that place, construction wise, all around the whole deal. So it was just cool it took me 20 minutes to figure out how to get in the place. Honestly, there's a really small little, I don't know if it's a go-kart track or like an RC car track or something that some of the neighbor has. And I caught myself looking and taking pictures there. And, I by accident went around the whole facility trying to find the entrance because there's so much construction. There's so many cars but it just got me a good look of everything and I got to see it all. And so that part was really cool, just even before getting into the place. And, I think I'm not normally the person that does the track walk. I'm always skip it. And I always just kind of like, oh, if I go in blind, I won't know what to expect. And I'll just kind of pick it up as I go. But I walked that racetrack 3 times, just having fun. I FaceTime my late model crew guys, just to show them. And, they ran the late model race there. So I got to talk with them. And it's just such a cool place. I ran 400 laps there
Wow.
yesterday. And I was more than every other truck that was there. There were two others. And I ran the most laps out of all of them. We were nonstop on the racetrack. We just took it for I was more so just wanted to have fun, but they were wanting to learn every little bit they could. And so we got all the laps we could out of that place, and I was still learning by lap 400. Like I was still I still found something new or some little crack. You're just constantly searching. You're constantly looking as the tires wear. Oh, you got to run this line. You got to turn. Now you can't get away with what you got away with. So it's so cool. I mean, it was 3 seconds of fall off in 50 laps. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's so much fun. Like you're instantly feel like you're a hero for about 3-4 laps because you just got done with a 30 lap run, fully wore out, sideways, terrible driving at 30, let alone try to get to 50. We struggled to get to 50, and when we got there, it was now all of a sudden you go 3 seconds faster, you feel like a hero, even though you don't have that much grip. So it's just and it instantly goes back away. So it was super fun to have that sort of feel rather than worry about being trimmed out and trying to go the fastest wide open. It was just a really big change of pace to go from Atlanta to there.
Yeah.
Do you
Wow.
feel like that's going to be like a pretty big advantage for you guys to have gotten that much testing in to get that many laps for you as a driver to, sort of see the place and get laps on it before you're going to run the race? Like it has to be a pretty big advantage for you guys.
Yeah, I think there's obviously going to be an advantage. I don't know if 100% that it's going to be like a team advantage 100%. I think obviously us knowing what's real, what's not, but like we unloaded pretty dang close. Honestly, we all three did. All our cars drove terrible just because of how wore out the place was. But I don't think you could get that much better. Honestly, like we all three of us have didn't do any sim, didn't really have anything, and yet our travels were really close. Like everything was really close. So if we nailed it with no preparation, and now we give all the other teams now have manufacturer sim and data, I think we're all gonna unload pretty close. I just think driver wise, unless those guys go do long runs as much as us, it's gonna be a little bit of a driver advantage, if anything. But team wise and unloading wise, like Tricon has 5 trucks. They have 5 trucks. So that's 5 trucks that now know everything. So I think it's going to be that sort of deal. Like obviously the manufacturers are really going to spread this information out. Everybody's going to be asked. There were a lot of ThorSport crew chiefs, KBM crew chiefs, BMR. Like there were a lot of crew chiefs and drivers and people showing up. Even Ross showed up. To just look and get all the information. I think everybody's going to be pretty aware, and all the teams are going to be up to speed. It's just going to be if the drivers can get up to speed, and I think having those just extra laps rather than a simulator is going to be crucial.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are absolutely looking forward to that weekend coming up here in just a couple months. It's great to hear that the track still has a lot of character. So I know I'm looking forward to it. But looking forward as well, Carson, you announced an Xfinity Series deal with Spire Motorsports, a part-time deal. How did that deal come together, and what are you looking forward to most?
I mean, honestly, this has been coming together for 6-8 months. Long time talks, and there were a lot of talks with other teams. Honestly, I don't know if I'm technically should say this or allowed to say it, but I mean that rumor that I was talking about the 9 car, right? I mean that wasn't. I mean the rumors. There's some truth to every rumor. This was like late last year, so the
Oh yeah.
rumors of the 9. I was like, how do you like? Honestly, I was like, how do people know this stuff? Like I was barely aware of this. Like how does anybody know this? Like, and it was not like it was like really quick talks. Like everybody in the garage talks, and everybody asks what you're doing, and everybody talks, and so I was like, we talked about it, right?
Hmm.
Had little talks. I talked with uh, 3 other top Xfinity teams, right? Like you you just talk, or
Yeah.
even like I never personally talk, but you're business people, and you have a team, and Brennan knows you have a team that talks, and every team's asking. I got calls from other organizations slash manufacturers before, and nothing comes of it. Talk's really cheap. So when I saw that, I hardcore played into it last year. I was like, oh, this is funny. Like, this is hilarious. And then Drew Dollar, and I was like, okay, hold on, I gotta stop. Like, he's doing it. He's doing it way too much. Like, I just did one. But no. So I tweeted the 7 because it was. So I tweeted originally the tweet for the 7 because it was going to be 7 p.m. And I was going to put 7 like TN, like 7 tonight or something, because I was like, every driver teases something. I was like, I should kind of do something rather than, oh, hey, I'm doing this. So I'm like, I should take this a little seriously. So I was like, I'll put a 7. And then when I retweet it, it'll say 7-7. So it's like 7 tonight. And then like on my page, if you
Oh,
look, it'll say 7-7.
that's big brain. That's smarter
Yeah.
than Twitter is.
Yeah, I was like, hey, no big deal. And then I was at this niche shop. I wasn't really doing a whole lot, and a handful came up. I didn't have my phone on, and a handful came up and they said, hey, uh, I'm getting texts about you driving a cup car. Like, your phone, like my phone's blowing up from notifications of your deal. And I looked at my phone and like I plugged it in and charged it, and instantly like 700 notifications came up, handful of text messages. People were congratulating me
Oh
on
my
a cup.
gosh.
I'm like, no. Like a handful of my buddies were like mad I didn't say anything to them. They're like, oh, I thought you were doing this deal. What happened to this? Like, no. So yeah, I basically gave the 9 card. I basically played Richard or Mr. H for like about 20 minutes or a few hours, that Corey LaJoy was going to the 9 car and I was going to the 7 car, and I was just a master plan. And I think what's hilarious was obviously Hendrick had it made enough attention that Hendrick posted their release like 2 hours earlier, even though I went to the Chevrolet like gym or whatnot, and Josh was in there like looking over data with me. We were both looking at data for Phoenix because I was doing Trackhouse, simulator stuff for Phoenix, and he was doing simulator for Hendrick. So we were both looking at it. So I'm like, yeah, he's driving the 9 car. Like, he's right here. Like, meanwhile, I literally just outed him on Twitter.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah,
I was like,
I wondered
yeah,
about that. You broke the internet without even trying.
yeah, and I was like, man, I wasn't trying to do
It
that.
just shows you how much
I
power
didn't
and
even see
influence you
the
have.
angle. I didn't even see the angle. I was like, what am I missing you? And I'm like, whoa, that's a big stretch.
It was definitely a couple of steps removed for sure. I just love that. I love that your hints, your teasers on Twitter are just too smart for Twitter. Quite honestly, like you expect way too much of the internet, I think.
Yeah, I mean that, or like I just happen to have like the biggest coincidence ever, and I just fall into it, and then I play into it really hard. Like I play into it really big, by like accident, like the 7, like
Mhm.
of all things, I was literally just like I was getting ready to pull out. I was like, I should probably tweet something, and I left JRM, and I'm like, hey, I should probably tweet something. I'm like, 7 tonight, 77. Like, I was trying to hit something, and I was like, 7, and just tweeted it
Man,
and then left.
it's amazing what one digit can create on the internet, the stir it can cause. Well, okay, you are driving the 77 for a few races this year. So, I mean, what kind of are your expectations making that jump into Xfinity? And Brennan can probably chime in here, as obviously he's racing the Xfinity. He was once a first-time Xfinity Series driver. I mean, what are you looking out
Yeah.
for?
I mean, for me, like my debut was Las Vegas in 2015, and I hadn't raced really that much. So at least Carson, for you, you've been doing such an amazing job in the trucks, and you've been fighting hard for more and better opportunities. So like I'm happy to see you get this shot and to be able to get your debut in an Xfinity car. And man, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun and soak up just that first one is just always special. Like you never forget the first one in any series, whether it's truck, Xfinity Cup, whatever it is that you do. Like that first one is always a special one. And man, you're going to be in a hot rod too, so you're going to have a great opportunity. So you have to be feeling good about it and excited for the opportunity to drive a car. You're not going to have a bed anymore behind you, man. It's going to be a car and trunk.
I
So it's
know.
different.
I know. I sat in it thinking, like, honestly, I was pretty nervous about it. In the sense, like, I was like, man, like it's gonna, like, I'm tight in the truck, and like, I drove an ARCA car at Phoenix, and like, it threw me off of how like little the window was. Like, I feel cramped, but like, I sat in the Xfinity car. I'm like, okay, this isn't that bad, and I felt pretty comfortable in it. But no, I think realistic expectations is to run top, like top 10 every run. Like at some point in the run, you always run halfway decent. Whether you finish there or not, that's a different story, and that's a bit of luck. But if you have some sort of top 10 speed, and being there's about 12 to 13, Brennan knows there's about 12 to 13 A program cars, and then there's that bit of gap. So if I can outrun two of the A program cars, that puts me 10th. And if that's a solid day, that's what I want to be at sort of the bare minimum, and anything more would be above expectations.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the Xfinity series now, full time in trucks, but now you're making that jump. And I know you're only 20 years old, right? Like, still very young, still learning so much. But I guess I want to ask you, for a lot of fans who are starting to follow your journey the past couple of years, can you give us a little insight into where you started racing, kind of your early beginnings? Like, what was the first jumping off point that really got you into the top ranks of NASCAR where you are today?
Well, it comes back to just meeting Johnny Benson by accident, really. My dad had a little local coin jewelry shop in Michigan, and does very well, mainly because he works 130 hours and doesn't have many employees. And my mom works there, and they work nonstop, so they don't have to have other employees. And the more they work, obviously, the better that little business is going to do. And they do everything they can for racing. And when I was growing up, they knew I wanted to be a race car driver and figure it out. And there was a local track 20 minutes from me named Kalamazoo Speedway, and they got approached with us. That was back when racing was short track racing. Everybody went to, that was a normal thing. There were 20 local sponsors on cars, and he got offered one. He's like, well, you're probably going to end up racing here. He's like, I'll do some little small sponsor and just understand it all. He's like, I'll figure it out and understand it and learn racing. He's like, it's not that much. And the guy said he needs a job, so we'll hire him, and just kind of offset it. And the guy that I met ended up working for my dad for 15, 16 years. And he's happened to get race cars built by Johnny Benson. Back then, Johnny built race cars and built late models. So that grew, and their relationship all grew, and I grew, and I went to the racetrack every weekend. I was literally was an absolute menace and tore up that little racetrack. I lived there. The gates open. I lived there. I knew every race car driver there. I had all their autographs. I literally, I would go up and announce. I would go up and flag. Whatever they wanted, just because I was everybody's buddy at that place. So, but once I started growing up and being a chance to maybe go run late models, we asked. Johnny was selling his race car. He was kind of getting out of racing, at least that time, and he's like, I kind of want to be done and this and that. So we went to look at his car, and he had me go test his late model, and he liked me enough and saw something, maybe. He's probably pretty crazy to let a 12-year-old drive his late model and want to take him on. But he grew, I drove for him for 2-3 years at Berlin, and he taught me everything. He taught me how to stock car drive. And about when I was 14, or when I turned 15, he wanted to help my dad. Like he taught me how to stock car race. He taught me everything. And then he taught my dad the business side of it, and where to go, what direction, run with this ARCA car, and they want to give you a shot. And get your part. He gave us partners to go race. He gave me all his local Michigan sponsors, and I've been able to grow that. And that's how I was able to late model race. It's still how I'm able to late model race, and it's how I was able to go ARCA racing, and uh, just got really fortunate with Jordan Anderson and Nice that they were in the same building and racing for Jordan 2 times that I didn't even think was going to be worth it. Johnny called me and said, "You're ridiculous. Go do this thing. If you run 15th, everybody's going to think you're a hero." And ran those 2 cars and got a call from Alan East and Cody Efall, and they were able to. They were fortunate enough, or I was fortunate enough. They were okay with losing money for 2-3 years to let me drive a race car, and now we're here now with Wex Racing, and everything's covered, and they're finally able to make money off me, hopefully. So it's that's a long story, real
Yeah.
short, but really fortunate. If Johnny didn't nickel and gouge and do every favor he could for all his partners, that when he went to Michigan, they covered all his racing, I wouldn't have been able to race.
Yeah, wow, that's an incredible like mentor to have take you under your wing, and the support. That's insane. And yeah, you mentioned when you made those starts for Jordan Anderson. That's when I first noticed. That was the first time I saw you in NASCAR. Was in those races, and that was the first time you ever got on my radar. And now here you are, full time in trucks, making some Xfinity starts. I want to talk to you about your Truck Series season a little bit. I know you've said that this season your team has more resources, there's more pressure on you than maybe last season there was. So can you explain that a little bit? Like, do you work better under that pressure? Like, how much faster or similar are your trucks this year compared to last year?
I just think overall, they're just better. There's just more funding in the building. We're able to upgrade our trucks. We don't have to take a less truck and expect to still run the same spot. Still run top five. Just able to just do all the little things. We're able to, if we if we gain something in the wind tunnel, we can apply it everywhere. We weren't used to do that. Like if we found something in the wind tunnel, we'd run that truck everywhere until it crashed or until it got damaged. And then we try to fix it, try to replicate it, try to put it back to that spot. And it was tough to put it back to that spot. Brennan knows it's tough to build. You could build something by accident, make a gain, and then you don't know what you did. Or even if you try, it's that one little bolt or one little flex or one little anything that's making 20, 30, whatever more downforce or less drag, just whatever the case. So it's just tough when you don't have your whole fleet and everything's kind of inconsistent. And you're trying to build you go to Charlotte and you really, really good low grip, and you try to build the same setup to go to Kansas, and all of a sudden you're totally different. You just can't build your program if your bodies or your just everything's a little different. So being able to just kind of streamline our fleet and just be able to upgrade and make sure everything's as close as possible just to build our notebook, and get better springs, better shocks, better pit crews, just a little bit of everything, just to be able to have that A-level funding or A-level program. Just it's so hard to win races. So to be able to just iron out little details is just really what's big. And it's just been a long process. And I got handed Wex Racing basically on a platter, and got really fortunate that I met the guy at Bristol Dirt. I met them. We were going to do a 3-race, 4-race deal just because he's like, sure, I'll help you out. I'll help the company, whatever. But it was really a Dean Thompson Ross deal. And I led 55 laps and ran second. That was the first time I ever really shook the guy's hand. It was my 3rd time ever meeting him. And he said he would help me out a little bit. And by the end of the race, we ran so good. He had the rest of the races I had open in next year. Like it's so cool to have all that, and just be in the spot of where we are and be able to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Fast cars, with that comes some pressure. I know you said earlier this season, and I don't remember the exact quote, but you, in so many words, said that if you don't win this year, either you or your crew chief are getting fired. So, I mean, does that like light a fire? Are you kind of lighting a fire underneath
Yeah.
yourself with that kind of comment?
Well, obviously, like I say that metaphorically, right? Or if we Phil's not getting fired, I promise you that. He's not. He's the backbone of this company. If anything, it's
Mhm.
me. But I kind of said that as a joke, because it's at the same point, there's probably some truth to it in a sense of we'll have to look ourselves in the mirror and wonder what's wrong, or I'll have to look myself in the mirror and wonder what I'm doing wrong. We were able to do a lot with a little last year. More so, Phil. He was able to hand me race trucks so that I can get up on the wheel and muscle, and make something out of them rather than he still had to give me handling to be able to go faster and be able to make up speed, which is really hard to do. So for him to do that with less is huge. So now that we have everything, in a sense, it should be easier, but at the same time, it's also tougher because it you almost can outthink yourself. We have been having to outthink and outwork and nonstop. Well, now I especially can afford to slow down. I sat in a trailer at Sonoma with Ty Norris, and he looked at me and he said, "Boy, you're faster than almost everybody in this garage." He's like, "When are you going to learn to smarten up to go slower?" I said, "I don't know how. I can only drive off instinct. Like I can make up speed by not thinking and literally being up on the wheel. Like I couldn't breathe, and that's why I put myself in worse spots. And, I never had time to think. And I felt like everybody around me was, in the top five, their stuff was handling so good where I had to outwork them to get there, where they were just there off raw speed. So for us to have raw speed, Vegas, I was the most comfortable and felt like I was the smartest race I've ever had to do because I was able to think. The raw speed was in the truck and not in my hands, in the steering wheel and in my foot, and constantly just sideways to make speed. So it's really good to see that, and hopefully we can continue to build this package. It's so different. Everything's so different that we'll have to sort of we won't be able to B just because it is going to handle different, but we're going to be able to, I think, our ceiling's a lot higher, that me and Phil, and we work so good together. I have a lot of, I have tread with this lightly. I have a lot of dads. I have a lot of families, but like racing families, racing dads, and racing whatnot. So, he's definitely one of them, and Al Nice is one of them. So it's super huge for all of that to just be able to work together as well as we do and laugh and just know that what I say he hears and what he says I hear, and work really well. And none of us has egos. We just try and make the trucks go fast and bring our friends to the racetrack.
I think that was really well said. I think that's one of the best explanations I've heard. I mean, you touched on a lot of different things there, but everything that you said is like, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're exactly spot on with that, and I think you've got a pretty amazing story, and it's awesome to hear it direct from you. I know I raced with you a few times over the years here and there, and chatted with you a little bit, but it was really cool to hear you talk about everything where you're at this year, to hear how excited you are about the Xfinity opportunity. I'm excited for you for that. And yeah, to just see where you're headed and to just hear a little bit behind the scenes of how you got to where you're at. I mean, that was, I don't even think I knew all of those things. And so that was just, man, that was just really cool to hear. So keep the faith, man, and keep digging. You're right there. And you and I both know how difficult it is to win these races. I've finished second a few times myself. I crossed the line first one time and then didn't even win. That's how difficult these things are to win. I think, you guys are on the verge. And so it's awesome to see Nice and get to where they're at and how you've been a part of building that program. And hopefully we'll see you celebrating here soon.
Yeah, what hat are you gonna break out if you win a race? Do you have like a favorite in your collection that you're kind of saving for the opportune moment?
I mean,
Is it a secret?
I could be that guy and like wear a king hat, like just like a king crown. I
Oh
could be that
man,
guy. If I ever won the championship, I'd show up into Daytona with like I would be that guy.
that'd be
Like
fair.
I don't have that big of an ego to pull that off, or like that big of like just arrogance, but like that would be like I think like so hilarious. Like I even though it's just the truck series, like you could maybe get away with that in Cup, but I don't know. But I really haven't done a lot of hats. You know, companies spending the money they do,
I'd noticed. I wondered.
they could buy my hat, but also too, like I just wanted to make sure that there was zero excuses, zero anything that I was not focused, right? Like I've been in the shop, I've been doing so much data, like everything, like I know everything around me is an A-level program, right? So I want to make sure I was A-level on myself, and I nobody can point fingers or say that I wasn't focused and not putting in work. So that's why I haven't done it, just because I don't want another excuse of anything. You know, I really haven't. Granted, I can blow up Twitter with one number, but you know, I haven't. I've tried to stay off my phone. I've tried not to play a lot of social media games. Like I've just tried. You know, I've got great people around me. I have a babysitter now at the racetrack, basically, just so I don't have to manage as much as I used to. Like, just want to be able to go to the racetrack and focus on racing and make sure I'm at the top of my game. Just because I know you know, my pit crew's at the top of their game. Everybody in the shops is top of their game and working hard. They were all here till you know, midnight after you know being at Wilkesboro, and I was here till midnight with them. Like I wanted to be here. I wanted to show up here at 6 a.m. just to make sure I beat all of them here, but I had to go to Chevrolet gym at 7, so it wasn't logistically possible. But I just want to make sure I nailed everything, and so that's why. And I feel bad because you know I want to stay true to myself, and a lot of people loved them, and I really didn't think that many people would miss them. But I said once we win a few races or win a race and get the momentum rolling, you know, I could finally think that I can get back away with that.
It makes sense to me. Well, hopefully, Carson, you're in Phoenix battling for a championship in a few months. And if you win that championship, yeah, I'd love to see a crown. You got to bring something back, at least for a one-time deal.
I don't know. I don't know if I just outed myself, but I would definitely do it. That or something. I would think of something good. Like I would definitely just run it or remind. Like I just think it's so cool. Like when any like sports athlete just like either calls their shot and then just plays the part after they win. Like that's just the coolest thing ever. So like I would have to somewhat play and just remind everybody that like that, or like I'll show up in like a red Craftsman Camping World track champion whatever like jacket or something.
You're giving too many of these ideas away. Someone's listening in on this.
I have a bazillion ideas, but I'd roll into something and everybody would be reminded of it.
I like it. Well, fingers crossed we get to see that later this year. Carson, thank you so much for being on this show. I think this was pretty great for our second Power Hour guest. Hopefully those seconds
Who was the first?
Daniel Suarez.
Daniel Suarez. Oh, my amigo.
Yeah, you got to put a target on his back now.
I love Daniel. I call him my amigo, and he calls me my friend. So it's hilarious.
That's how you know you're in with Daniel. If he's calling you his amigo, he means it. He's genuine.
Well, he calls me his friend because he calls everybody else amigo, and I say amigo to him, so he says friend.
Oh.
So we switch languages because I don't know any. That's the only Spanish word I know.
All right. Appreciate you being on, Carson. I was saying that hopefully these seconds start to turn into firsts very, very soon. I know we all like what we're seeing. Good luck the rest of this season, and good luck with your Xfinity Series debut coming up. Appreciate you being on.
Thanks, Eric.
Huge thank you again to Carson Hocevar for coming on the show, being a part of Power Hour presented by Circle B Diecast. Again, you can use code OOTG for free shipping on orders over $30. That's circlebdiecast.com. Brennan, do you have a special diecast that you want to talk about this week?
Well, I wanted to bring out the ever so classic Ray Everham cars that he did way back in the day. This is a name that many people may not know or have forgotten about, but It is Casey Atwood. It's signed.
Whoa.
Okay, so it's
on the hood.
On the hood. It's pretty legit. And I, as a kid, you know, Casey Atwood, when I was younger, he was like the up and coming guy. Like he was like, you know, and he got this huge deal for Evernham, and like, you know, there's so much talks that he was going to be like, you know, the one. And so I remember getting this signed Casey Atwood car and just like being pretty hyped about it. Like young Brennan was like, oh my God, it's signed. Like this is this kid who's going to be, like the guy. So, um,
That's
this car
cool.
has always been, yeah, this car's always been a special car to me. And I was a Jeff Gordon fan. So Ray Everham to me also was like, a pretty important guy to me in my life. So this being his team and getting this car and getting this young driver that he believed in, like as a young kid trying to make it, like this was cool to me. So to
Absolutely.
have this autographed car was like super special.
That's a cool one. I should have saved you for last because I think you've upstaged me. I've got Jimmy
Oh,
Johnson. It's not signed. 2003 Lowe's Chevrolet, right before. Well, I guess 3 years before he went on his 5 championships in a row run. But the last year, the Winston Cup Series, I wanted to highlight this Jimmy scheme. One, because it's classic. This is, in my opinion, some of the best years of the Lowe's schemes, the early years. But he's also coming back to race at Circuit of the Americas this weekend. So I figured I'd show it off since Jimmy Johnson's going to be on the racetrack and in the headlines here in just a few days. But yeah, there you go. Jimmy
at
Johnson.
least you've got that. You picked a car of someone that's coming and racing this weekend, and mine, guys, like I don't even know what KCI would be doing anymore.
Yeah.
But you know,
I guess
at
mine's a
least
little more
you're on
relevant
par
at
for the
least.
weekend. Yours is more relevant. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you to Circle B Diecast, as always, for sponsoring Power Hour. Use code OOTG for free shipping on orders over $30. Link to their website is down in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. But thank you to Circle B for supporting the show. And thank you, fans, for listening to our first episode a few weeks ago with Daniel Suarez. Was blown away by the support on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you listen to this show. We really appreciated it. We also took some fan questions. This week, Brennan, I've picked out a few questions that fans asked you that I'm going to ask you
Ooh.
now today on their behalf.
Okay.
And
All
do
right.
you have some questions for me picked out?
I do. I have them. They're written into my phone.
I'm
So
terrified of what they may be. Well, I'm going to go and get started, Brennan. There's a question for you from Harvick for the win 570. What are some things in racing that people don't understand just from watching on TV?
Well, that's a really good question because there are a lot of different things that I personally always wish the fans could experience. For example, what it really feels like in the car when you're, in a big pack side by side or three wide in the middle and you're making all these decisions and how quick you actually have to make these decisions and how much you have to anticipate things happening before they happen in
Mm,
order to get a good result or run a good race or miss a wreck, like all those things. And I think it's hard for the fan watching on TV to see those things. It's difficult to see them even in real life in the stands. At least in the stands at the race, you can really, like, if your driver's in the race, like you're a fan of whoever, you can watch them the whole time and listen to the radio and see the moves and see the decisions that they're making. Where on TV, you miss some of those amazing moves that get made, in the middle part of the pack or around 10th or ninth or whatever. You miss some of those moves. You're like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. Did you see that? So like to me, those are like at track experiences you get to have, but the fans just miss out
yeah.
on some of those things on TV and that feeling of like, man, if a fan could really feel like what it feels like to be in the corner behind someone messing around with the dirty air and like, why is it so difficult to pass that car? Like, why won't that driver just pass that guy? It's like, well, we can't. Like, we're trying, but you just can't get there because of the air or they've moved around. Now they're taking your line away. Like that type of stuff. I wish the fans could feel what that feeling is like when you're driving the car. And I think that's one thing that's challenging in NASCAR is that we have football and golf and basketball and baseball and all this stuff. Like anybody can play those sports or has the
Yeah.
ability to do that. Where racing is a little bit more challenging for just the casual person to have those experiences, understand them. So really good question. And I think for me, I just would really like for them, to be able to feel what it actually feels like to be in the pack, to be in the car, to be that close and how quick things happen and the decisions you have to make and how quick you have to make them, and do it without making a mistake, you know?
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So it's my turn now to
Oh
ask
boy.
you the question. I don't even know what saying I was going to say. It's gone. You see, this is what happens when you hit things, kids. You just gone. Um, no. Okay. So this person, Sock Pops. Props to your name. I don't know what
I
Sock
like
Pops
that.
are, but that's a crazy name. I like it a lot. Yeah. All right. Do you have any advice for someone looking into media/content creation in the racing sphere?
That's definitely a good question. That's a big question. The media landscape changes so fast, so I feel like my answer on this always changes slightly, because I've been asked this question before. Um, I think no matter what, if you want to work in media in any sport in any industry, I think you need to first find the unique angle that you're qualified to tell. Like what story are you uniquely qualified to tell? Where do you come from? What's your background, and how can that benefit you? Like for me, I was a younger fan. I didn't have a lot of young NASCAR fans in my day-to-day life to talk racing with, and NASCAR, older audience, typically a lot of the traditional media in NASCAR, a lot older. So I felt like there needed to be more voices speaking to the younger fans. I'm someone who got into the sport after the chase was implemented, and I feel like that's a unique perspective. And I lean into that, especially early on. I leaned into that very heavily. So no matter what you're interested in, if it's racing, find either a specific area of racing, a specific story that you've studied, that you feel uniquely qualified to tell, because that's what will set you apart. If you just go in and do the same interviews, the same conversations, rehash the same quotes that everybody else is, it's easy to get lost. But if you're really talking about something differently, or covering or highlighting something in a unique way, you'll stand out. And I think if you continue to work hard and do good work at that, eventually you'll kind of separate yourself from the herd. So that's kind of big and open-ended. But I think the media landscape, the nice thing about 2023 is that with social media, it's easier than ever before to be your own publisher. You can take a chance on yourself. You don't need someone else to take a chance on you. So just get out there and start doing it and see where it goes. That's my advice.
Yeah, I think that was yeah, well said. I mean, you know more about that landscape than me, but I definitely agree with everything that you said. Good advice, Eric. Good advice.
Thank you. Whew, 1 for 1. All right. Well, let's see if this keeps going well. Toast is good. Another
Toast is good.
Very solid username. This is for you, Brennan. I want to start racing stock cars someday. How did you start racing in stock cars?
Well, okay, another good fair question. I raced quarter midgets, so I started when I was 5. So I started racing at a very early age. And then I sort of, went from there, and I raced legend cars, and did that that's the first time I ever, changed gears, and I was 12, I think then. So, and then I raced dirt modifieds and dirt late models before I ever even raced a stock car. So the first time I ever drove a stock car, which was at Hickory Motor Speedway in North Carolina, baby, come on. And it was I was 19. I was 19, about to turn 20. So I was a lot older. So that's the first time I ever drove a full-bodied stock car on pavement. Other than that, I'd only been doing stuff on dirt. So I think, depending on where you're at in life and your age and what you want to do, I think the thing to do is to try and get into maybe a smaller car first, or like maybe a limited late model to feel out what that's like with less power, and a little bit more affordable too. And they race on like used tires some weeks, stuff like that. And they do some stuff in a limited late model deal, or like a pro late model kind of deal. I think that would probably be the best route. But if you're young, I would say try to run a legend car, or try to and do something like that on pavement. A bigger car, you have to change gears. It teaches you a lot. They're very difficult to drive. So that way, after you have some experience doing that, you could make that transition into like a limited late model or a full blown late model, and try to feel that out and make that jump. But if you haven't raced anything, that would be tough. But if you have been racing and you're a racer and you're going to do it, I would say, try to go, test the late model at like your local short track or something, and see if it's for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that helps. Toast is good.
Yeah,
That sounded
awesome
like good
name.
advice to me.
Toast is good. That his screen name is giving out good advice. Toast is good.
It's just spitting
Yeah, it is.
facts.
All right, I guess I'm up now. These
Do-do-do-do-do-do.
challenging questions. All right, I thought this was an interesting one because I wanted
Okay.
to hear your thoughts on it, on what you would think. And and this one is from Jared Chandler. Okay. And he wants to know, if you could pick any car to race for the 2023 season, like which ride would you select? Which team, which car number, what team do you want to drive for if you could pick any of them?
Man, I mean, obviously I'm not a race car driver, but I guess I could just look at which cars seem most set up for success. I think you look at Hendrick Motorsports. If I could pick any car, I would pick one of those. I
Are
don't know
you
if
sure you want to be called a cheater though?
There's that. Well, see, I was gonna
I'm
say
just kidding.
the only the like I just said, there is that. Like like I'm just
Uh,
acknowledging. Like, oh yeah, yeah, everyone
yeah.
knows. No, um, uh, with that though would come a lot of pressure. I feel like Hendrick Motorsports, and I don't know, I haven't been in the shop. It's a little more no nonsense. I mean, you're expected to be the best. There is pressure that comes with that. You are the elite of the elite in the garage. So, I don't know. Like there are other teams out there that maybe have a more inviting atmosphere that you could still have a lot of success at. Perhaps we always heard that Joe Gibbs Racing was like a family. I don't know how much that exists now. We've heard a little more maybe detractors from there the last couple of years with Kyle Busch leaving, and less and less veterans being over there. But I don't know. I think I would have to go Hendrick. I would have to probably pick the 5 or the 9 car. But I don't know. William Byron and Rudy Fugle. Does the crew chief come with the car? If I pick like the 5
I
car,
think so.
do I get Cliff Daniels with him? Like, is there a
Yeah,
package deal?
yeah, I think it's a package deal. I think you're just changing the driver out for yourself,
All right.
and
They'll have
everything
to
else would
move.
just.
They'll have to move the seat back if I drive really anyone's car.
They're gonna
Probably.
have to do. They're gonna have to figure out all kinds of stuff in there. They're gonna have to move the dash around. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't even. You got long enough arms too that maybe the shifter placement might be fine. You
Oh
might,
man.
depending on your. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You ever had those situations
I've
where
had
you
a
get in
tough
a
time.
car?
I've had a tough time squeezing into rental cars sometimes. I can only
Yeah,
imagine
well,
a Cup Series car. Oh, that is
yeah.
a good question though. That's
It, it was solid.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was interested to hear your answer too, so that's why I chose it.
I liked the way this question was worded. This is my last question for you, Brennan, from my dad's YouTube, not my actual dad's YouTube. Their name is my dad's YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And they ask you, Brennan, since you showed off your favorite Kevin Harvick diecast, I think that was last week, right, or last month.
Yeah, yeah. That last
Um,
month, yeah.
they ask, have you ever met him or anybody? This is probably early in your career, and went, man, I love your car. I have it in my collection, or something like that. I think bigger question that my dad's YouTube is asking here is, have you ever geeked
Have I
out?
talked to Kevin Hart
Oh, no,
or
yeah.
geeked out over?
Have you ever geeked out over, I don't know, I guess a driver you were probably racing against or that you saw in the garage? Has that ever happened to you?
I mean, I've talked to Kevin Harvick a few times because we raced against each other in
Yeah.
the Xfinity Series when he used to run a lot more Xfinity Series races, and we've got into it a little bit because I ran him over one time on accident at Darlington. He
Mm,
didn't crash, but he almost did, and he was pretty mad at me at first because I think he thought it was intentional. I'm like, dude, I just messed that up. It happens sometimes. It was on a restart. So I have talked to him, and he's given me some advice here and there early on in the beginning parts of my career because like I said a month ago, like Jeff Gordon was always my guy, but when Jeff kind of left, like I really leaned more towards Harvick, and I always kind of pulled for Harvick, kind of secretly, even though I was like very much forward about being a Jeff Gordon fan. But so I appreciated his advice to me early on in my career, and it was just kind of wild to get to race against him, like to even be like, yeah, I literally almost crashed Kevin Harvick once, right? Like that's pretty cool because as a kid, you grew up watching him, right? I was 10
yeah.
when he took over the 29 after everything that happened in
Yeah.
2001. So for me in that era, like Kevin Harvick was another guy that I really grew up watching and, sort of modeling myself after, a little bit. I always looked towards Jeff Gordon, but as I watched, Kevin, his driving style, I feel like I try to model my driving style a little bit more after his.
Hmm.
So it's cool to see what he's done, a champion in the sport, and obviously we of course wish him a great,
Happy retirement.
happy retirement. Yeah.
Did you
So
catch on the
um
pre-race show? It was like they interviewed. Michael Waltrip went up to his son Keelan briefly, who I don't. He's what, like 9 years old now, and just asked
yeah,
him
something
like
like
he just asked him like, oh, when's your next race? And I think he said like Italy, and I'm like, oh my
that.
god, Kevin
Yeah.
Harvick is going to be busy in retirement.
Well, I when he let his kid sit in that F1 car over there at
Yeah.
the shop too, so who knows? Who knows what his son's going to be doing? But I will say a funny thing since my dad's YouTube also asked. I've never been like, man, I love your car or anything like that to another driver or anything like that. I just haven't. But at Pocono, I think it was a couple years ago, or maybe it was last year. I can't remember. But Denny Hamlin's team had just got penalized or something or whatever for something they did. I don't know if it was around the tape or any of that. It might have been before that. I can't remember. It's been a few years. But my nephew, as his whole team, we were staying because the Xfinity Garage, Cup Garage is kind of together, and where my hauler was parked, the Cup cars were going through tech, and Denny Hamlin's guys were pushing his car. And my nephew at this time, I think he was like 8 or 7. and they had just gotten called out for cheating and penalized the whole deal. And he goes, "There goes the cheaters. There's the cheater." With all their guys, and it's a 7-year-old like yelling that at all them, and they all like look, and he's like, "Yeah, cheaters." And I just will never forget that. That was just so funny.
Oh my
man.
gosh.
So the kids don't have a filter sometimes. They don't care.
And they're looking at you like, is this
They're
kid with
looking at
you?
me. I'm like, dude, sorry guys,
I do not.
He's
They're
not
wondering
wrong. You guys did cheat. So
yeah, they're wondering where he heard it from.
exactly. I was a 7-year-old calling us cheaters as they're rolling through tech too, like they're about to go into the deal. And he's like, "There's the cheaters." I'm like, "Oh man."
Officials looking around. Whoa, right? Alarms going off.
Yeah, man. It's just so funny.
Dang.
All right. I guess it brings me to the last question. I think this is a good question to end on.
Okay, hopefully.
Because since Sean, I hope I'm saying this right. Is it McClurg? I don't know. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Sean, if not, sorry, buddy. I'm not the best at names. But he wants to know, since the show sponsored by Circle B Diecast, Eric, okay.
That's a beautiful tie-in. Good job, Sean.
Great job, Sean. Nailed it. When did you first start collecting NASCAR diecast cars?
Like collecting. I don't know that I could tell you when I got my first diecast car. There's a photo. A couple of years ago, my mom whipped out an old photo album, and there's a picture of me. I'm probably 4 or 5 years old, and I'm holding a little. It might have even been like an Ernie Irvan era M&M's diecast. Now I can't remember. It was a 30. It was a 36 car, M&M's car, and it was old. Like I even feel like I remember as a kid thinking it was beat up and old. I don't know where I got it. I have no clue. So I can't say that was the start of my collection. One thing that did just hit me in elementary school, I had a couple friends that liked NASCAR, and this is probably first, second grade, early to this 2004-ish, 2005-ish. And one of them, I remember, came to me on the playground one day, like it was like the black market or something. It was like, "Hey," and he kind of pulls it out because you're not supposed to have toys, in school. You're not supposed to bring toys to school. He pulls it out, he's like, "I got this," and he shows me it's like a 2004 Matt Kenseth 164 scale car. He's like, "I got this for you," and then he like tells me like, "I want that." I can't remember what car I traded him. I want to say it was a Mark Martin car of some sort. He's like, "I want that 6 car," and I was like, "Oh." So I was like, "Okay, put that away, shh." And I brought him. I think it was like an old. I think it was like a Valvoline car. I think it was some Mark Martin car. I brought back to school the next day, and on the playground we traded. Because of course I had to have I think I even had that Matt Kenseth car already in my collection, but I was like, no, I need another one. So it would have been pretty much the moment I started watching racing in the early mid 2000s. I started collecting diecast here and there, and when I started doing YouTube, I started buying whole fleets of cars because at that point it was like I'm trying to represent the whole series, and that's when I started to fill boxes and boxes of them. And now I just do it for fun. Now I just do it because sometimes it looks cool in the background of my studio, but also I guess now I'm not 12 years old. I have disposable income now. I can blow some of it on diecast.
Well, it's cool too that you have your own and you helped make
That's
one of my dreams come true, because I never had one. None of my Ganassi cars ever got made. None of my Cup cars got made. So I have
first of many, hopefully.
Yeah, first of many. There's going to be. I think there is another diecast I'm going to have this year, but we'll talk about that later.
A little
but
tease.
I'm excited about that.
That's exciting.
But I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Well, that's great. We opened up the show with Carson Hocevar talking about teasing things on Twitter. Now we're teasing things at the end of this episode, but I think we've run slightly over an hour, Brennan. Our strict power hour schedule has been broken 2 weeks in. But thank you, everyone.
Hour and 6 minutes.
Yeah. See, it just doesn't really work as well. But thank you, everyone, for listening, sticking with us. Once again, thank you to Circle B Diecast for sponsoring the show. If you have questions that you want us to answer on our next episode of Power Hour, which we don't exactly know who the guest will be yet, but if you have questions for me and or Brennan, you can leave them on my YouTube, underneath the YouTube video. You can tweet at us. We will be saving them so that we can ask them on the air next time. But Brennan, thanks for being on the show. Glad you're doing well after that good finish, but hard finish at Atlanta. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun. I can't wait for the next show. Can't wait for y'all's next questions. And can't wait to see who our next guest is going to be.
Going to be fun. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the latest episode of Power Hour.